At exactly 3:17 a.m., every server in the world went silent. No warning, no explanation, just silence. No Google, no banking, no emergency calls, nothing. For the first time in decades, humanity was completely offline. They called it the digital blackout, but the truth, it wasn't just the internet that died that day. Something much deeper did. This isn't just a story about technology. It's a story about dependence, about the invisible architecture that holds our entire world together. We've had warnings, a faulty update from a security firm in 2024 that grounded thousands of flights, an AWS cloud outage just last year that silenced major websites worldwide. We saw the cracks, but we never imagined the whole structure could collapse, because when the internet finally died, we learned something terrifying about ourselves. At first, people thought it was a glitch.
Another temporary crash. Reports started trickling in through the few channels still working, shortwave radio, word of mouth. It felt like the CrowdStrike crash from 24, when a single software bug froze 8 million computers. Or maybe like the big AWS outage last October, when huge chunks of the web just vanished for a few hours. But this was different. This wasn't a piece of the network failing, it was the whole thing. Then the real impact hit. Banks stopped processing payments. Not just online banking, but ATMs, credit card machines, everything. Hospitals lost access to patient records, the same way they did during recent cyber attacks, but this time it was every hospital, all at once. Emergency calls went dead. Airports shut down completely. Delta canceled 7,000 flights during that CrowdStrike incident. Now every airline was grounded. Flight plans couldn't be updated. Air traffic control screens were blank. The world didn't just slow down, it stopped. In less than 4 hours, we went from the information age to the dark age. And no one knew why. Was it a coordinated attack? A solar flare? Had we built a system so complex, so centralized on a few key providers that it was destined to collapse under its own weight? What happens when the digital world disappears overnight? First, panic. Without GPS, millions were stranded. Without digital keys and passwords, entire businesses simply ceased to exist. Supply chains, which relied on constant data flow, snapped. Shelves in supermarkets emptied in hours. But then, something else began to happen. In the silence, a different signal started to emerge. Neighbors, who hadn't spoken in years, knocked on each other's doors not to ask for a Wi-Fi password, but for a can of food, for news, for company. People pulled out old paper maps. They wrote notes by hand and posted them on community boards. It was as if we were rediscovering a forgotten protocol, a network that never goes down. We remembered how to look each other in the eye. We remembered how to connect. The question we have to ask ourselves now, in the quiet aftermath, is a terrifying one. Did we need to lose our creation just to find ourselves again? And what will we build in its place?
For the first time in decades, the world went quiet. No notifications, no endless scrolling, just the hum of wind and conversation. For a brief moment, the silence felt peaceful. Parents looked up and saw their children. Friends visited instead of texting. But that peace was fragile, built on a system no one truly understood. And by day 3, the chaos returned. This isn't just a thought experiment. It's a scenario that explores the deep fragility of our modern world. When the digital systems in the story failed, so did everything else. Water plants, financial markets, supply chains, all ground to a halt as panic turned violent. The cause wasn't a coordinated attack or a solar flare. It was a single corrupted protocol update, a cascade failure. One broken thread that unraveled the entire web humanity had built. This is more plausible than you might think. In July 2024, a faulty update from the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike crashed 8.5 million Microsoft Windows systems globally, disrupting airlines, banks, and media companies. We've built a god, and we keep forgetting it can die.
A single day of a global internet shutdown is estimated to cost the world economy over $40 billion. Weeks or months, the cost would be incalculable. But after the collapse comes the adaptation. In the weeks and months that followed the Great Outage, new systems began to emerge. Not digital ones, human ones. Communities turned to paper ledgers, ham radios, and old mechanical machines. They rebuilt, but differently. This reflects real-world strategies for community resilience. To prepare for outages, experts suggest developing neighborhood support groups, maintaining alternative communication tools like two-way radios, and establishing physical information hubs, like a town bulletin board. In the story, people stopped trusting algorithms and started trusting each other again.
Knowledge was no longer stored on a server. It was shared, face-to-face. While outages can cause social isolation, they also force a return to local direct communication, potentially strengthening community bonds. The most profound moment, however, came later. When the internet finally flickered back online, some people refused to log in. Why? Because the outage wasn't just a technical failure. It was a revelation. It reminded us how easily connection turns into control. We created something that linked the entire planet, an unprecedented tool for communication and knowledge. But somewhere along the way, we forgot to stay connected to ourselves and to the people right in front of us. The silence after the initial shock offered a different kind of connection, one without mediation, tracking, or distraction. The great digital death reminded us that the vast, complex systems we depend on are critically vulnerable. And it posed a fundamental question for our future. Maybe the next great innovation won't be a faster network or a smarter AI. Maybe it won't be digital at all.